Just moved to Los Angeles. She has a number of feature narrative projects in development, both on the independent and the studio side, so that's really interesting. And then next to Angela is Soman Chainani. Soman is our directing fellow. Soman graduated from the MFA program at Columbia University. His short films have played at over 150 international film festivals, won over 20 jury and audience awards, secured theatrical and other forms of distribution in over 100 territories, which is pretty amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It makes me feel so old.
And then next to Soman is Scotty Iseri, who's our new media fellow. And Scotty is the star. I just found out he's an internet star of a webisode series called Scotty Got an Office Job. So Scotty wrote, produced, edited, and performed in the show. It's in its 3rd season now, and he's worked in new media since 2005.
And I am really Asian. I'm working on it's a kids show, an educational program about an outer space rock and roll band. And it's a combination, it's designed for a web type environment, but specifically on tablets, so it's the kind of thing where the narrative is actually interactive, so kids can play it and navigate their way out of an asteroid field, and it changes the ending, and somehow they learn math by doing that.
And Scotty's mentor is Nina Walia, who's the creative strategist and producer of engaging cross-platform experiences. Nina has overseen interactive design and content development of websites and games for PBS Kids since 2004. She's worked on Curious George and Sid the Science Kid. And she's focusing right now on creating compelling gaming experiences that span multiple screens, mobile devices, and whiteboards included. And someone?
I'm working on my first feature film called Love Marriage. That is sort of a crossover film between an Indian family based in London. And it's about this family that runs a wedding shop together in a very conservative part of the city. And they're an extremely unconventional family. So even though they're catering to the most conservative Indians of their town, you've got the oldest brother, who's married to a white English girl. The middle son wants a gay wedding. The sister is kind of a character in herself and thinks she's the next J-Lo and pretends she's Mexican. And so you have this very unconventional family trying to sell weddings to a conventional family. So, I've been working on that with my mentor.
Great, and Soman's mentor is Jessica Yu, who regular attendees of this festival will know. Jessica is a really great writer-director. She's an Oscar winner, and she's produced a number of documentaries, including In the Realms of the Unreal and Protagonist, and she just had a narrative feature out called Ping Pong Player. So, and Angela?
I'm working on a project called Food, Girls, and Other Things I Can't Have. It's a young adult novel that just came out in paperback, so you should go check it out. It's about the second fattest kid in high school and what happens to him when suddenly he finds himself on the football team. And he's looking to see if all of a sudden his dreams of being able to get his dream girl or, be popular come true, or, is there something else going on? So I optioned that with Vox 3 Films, and we're looking to get it set up and made.
And Angela, what does that mean, get it set up?
So Vox 3 optioned the rights, the film rights for the book. And what I'm looking to do is, just because of the mainstream potential of this project, looking to set it up with a larger company, a mini major like Lionsgate or whatnot, or a larger studio like Fox 2000 or Paramount or something like that.
Okay, and Angela's mentor is probably one of the most successful young producers in Hollywood today. His name is Dan Lin, and Dan is currently working on, I think, like 15 movies, but including Sherlock Holmes 2. And Angela just told me he's developing a TV series based on Edgar Allan Poe, which is really interesting.
The world's first detective.
Just as media makers, filmmakers, what would maybe be something that when you first started out was a very common rookie mistake, or a common misassumption that you made that you kind of since have learned about?
I think for me, I transitioned into film. I didn't study film whatsoever when I was in school. I worked in finance for several years, and my interest in entertainment was always very latent, but it was something that I could never quite quash. So when I decided to make this transition, I knew nobody. I didn't understand the film industry whatsoever. I didn't understand that I couldn't get a comparable job paying the same amount of money that I did in finance as I could in film or TV, and that I needed to intern. And I remember going into my first job interview for a production internship a long time ago, and the UPM was saying, well, you know, you're overly qualified. You know, I'm going to have you run errands and make duplicates of keys and get coffee and do all these things. Are you comfortable with that? And I'm like, absolutely. You know, I'm really passionate about making this change and doing whatever I need to do. You sort of have to check your ego at the door and just be open to whatever you need to do to meet people in the industry that you want to work in and get the experience you need to get to where you want to go.
You know, I think I was the complete opposite. I had a subscription to Variety when I was 9, which is the film industry sort of like newspaper, and I think I had kind of like Madonna-sized ambition where I thought by 22 I was going to have an Oscar, and then it was just going to be, you know, Oscar after Oscar, and it was just, I felt like, you know, I had the complete opposite sort of tack coming in, which is that it was all going to be very easy, it was destined, and all that stuff. And I think what that did is once I got into film school and came out, is it made me overly antsy and focused on the results rather than the process. And I think what that does is it makes you send out stuff before it's ready. It makes you, you know, sort of lose your perspective sometimes on the process of getting something perfect, you know. And I think the process with Love Marriage has been so fascinating because I think it's God essentially making me learn the truth. And that's been going through draft after draft. We went through about 40 different drafts to get that to where it had to be, you know, before we got the green light for financing. Because essentially we had producers on it, thank God, who were on from the very beginning, but were like, we're not going to sign off on this. We're not going to go to the financiers until we think it's done. And I would turn in a draft and be like, it's done. And they'd be like, well, not done. You know, and we would just keep going. And it was years, you know. And when it was finally done, I saw the difference. Because when I was sending it out on my own, I would get maybe one person who liked it for every 15 I sent it to. And by the time it was done, confidently, every time they sent it out, they got either we want to make this, or, you know, it's not our thing, but here's someone who's going to like it, you know. So, and I think that was the difference between a rejection and something that was more constructive. And it came from having mentors, and it came from me checking my ego at the door and being like, okay, I'm not objective enough to decide when something is good because I think I'm Madonna, so I'm going to listen to other people.
And Soman, how long did you spend writing 40 drafts?
It took, the first draft was February 18th, 2005, and we locked it April 10th, 2010. So it was 5 years.
Wow. And can you also explain what does green light for financing mean?
Oh, so I think there's 2 stages. One is when you get a producer attached to your project. They're going to work with you to make that script perfect, ideally, unless you're a genius and did that on your own. And once that producer says, okay, this thing is ready, they're going to send it out to 20, 30 financiers that they have contacts with. And then, so that's the first green light, you know, when you're going out for financing. But the real green light, the industry term for it, is when a financer comes on and says, here's all the money, you are officially in pre-production, or you're allowed to start the process of making your film.
And who is Madonna?
Oh, my sort of like personal icon.
I mean, you know, I just watched The Runaways, which is a film about the Joan Jett's first band, and I learned that her album that went on to become, like, I think number 23 on Billboard's all-time, you know, bestsellers, I Love Rock and Roll, was rejected by 23 record labels, and it made her start her own record label, which she has to this day, and she owns all her own content, and you know, she's produced other bands that have come out on her label. But you know, it made me realize, wow, I mean, that's such a classic. It's such a classic song, but it was rejected by 23 labels when she first started. And that's kind of, you know, that's daily life in the entertainment business, right? It's, I mean, you deal with a lot of rejections. It's very rare that someone recognizes something that is different, and is going to, you know, be iconic and embrace that. So, you know, I asked Cindy and Ken what they do when they face creative roadblocks, and, you know, what do you guys do when you face rejection? Do you take showers and meditate also? Do you have other ways of coping?
Well, I can certainly speak on the flip side a little bit, having been a development exec for the past few years and having to deliver rejection notices or pass notices on a lot of writers. And my advice on that front really is just, you know, to continue to keep on being prolific and submitting new work and making sure that your name is out there in the festivals and labs and workshops, so that a person who has the capacity to take on your project, a development exec, a producer, etc., can get familiar with your work and who you are. I think that's key. As for personal rejection with regards to projects, obviously, as an independent filmmaker working for an independent production company, you know, we also are always looking for production financing for our projects. We certainly have some financing in-house, but we're always looking for co-productions and creatively thinking about ways to finance the films that we've made. And, you know, sometimes it's not a right fit for the companies that we reach out to, even though we think it would make a smart partnership. At that point, we have to think very creatively. And I think, you know, we were working on this project that had, that was sort of a cross-cultural project between Asia and America, and it was difficult because we were having a challenge finding the financiers on the American side. So then we started looking at you know, companies in Asia that might seem to make a right fit. And when that wasn't working, we were looking at angel investors or you know, individually wealthy people who might have a particular interest in that storyline, a niche, and reaching out to them. So I think from that point of view, it's just thinking out of the box and thinking how there might be other ways that are a bit less traditional that you can reach out to help get your project made, to get more support, etc. So that's what we just have to keep on being persistent and not give up.
And do you, so when you face those closed doors financing-wise, do you take another look at the projects on a creative level?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, for the projects we have, usually when we have a done script and we're on board as producers and we do a preliminary budget based on what we think that script can be made for, but we can't access the financing for that, we'll take a look at the script again and talk to the writer or writer-director and say, you know what, it seems really impossible in this climate to make it for the $4 or $5 million dollars that, you know, you'd want to do it for. Can we reevaluate and look at it and make it for maybe 1 and 2, where that seems to be the sweet spot for a lot of financiers. And then, you know, some filmmakers are receptive because they want to just get their film made. Others really want to have their full vision done, and sometimes that can be challenging when you're working from the producer or production company standpoint. But we certainly try to be creative and look at other ways that we can take advantage of shooting in a completely different location, so we can take advantage of tax incentives or government subsidies, or just looking for other creative ways that we can get some input of finance.